Hi, it's Sunday, March 9th, and we're tracking Tropical Storm Jude in the Mozambique Channel today. This system is now west of Madagascar. We talked about the two scenarios we had in mind in model guidance as the system came over Madagascar this weekend, and the northern solution has won out, and the system is now likely intensifying as it tracks towards Mozambique today. Now, we've also seen a trend in the modeling over the day, or the past couple of days rather, towards a more westerly track. And now the expectation is that this time tomorrow, we'll be seeing landfall of a cyclone in Mozambique. And this is now a significant threat to the region, as the system could be intensifying up to landfall. And alongside that, it will likely bring very heavy rainfall across much of Mozambique, which could lead to flooding issues throughout the early part of the week. Now, as of right now, the system is still trying to form its inner core structure. You can see the satellite does look a bit ominous. We do have this little divot in the cloud tops. This is not a more mature cyclone yet. This is more of a deceiving sign just from the developmental phase we're in. But this is showing that the system is wrapping thunderstorms around its center of circulation. And we can see this better if we look at the microwave pass. It is a little bit low quality, but you can see we have these curved bands of thunderstorms wrapping in around the center of circulation. And if this kind of a trend continues, this will likely be able to finish its central structure by later today. And once this is done, all systems are really go for this system to intensify. You can see on water vapor imagery, we have a lot of counterclockwise turning in the cloud field aloft. And this is draped directly over our storm. This is upper level high pressure, and this is contributing to a low shear environment. And this is forecast to remain fairly low shear all the way up to landfall. Now, we may see a little kick up of some slight moderate shear by the time the system gets closer to landfall. And that will be worth monitoring because we may have some dry air concerns for the system, and hopefully we can have that take a significant impact on the storm. But overall, the environment is favorable for the system to intensify, and anyone here in eastern Mozambique needs to be preparing for such a storm. Today is a good day to do it. We do have some thunderstorms around, but the bulk of the system's central convection is still well offshore. So you have time today to prepare for the system ahead of time. Now, I mentioned some slight moderate shear as the system gets closer to landfall. This is a GFS showing tomorrow night as the system is approaching Mozambique. The environment's aloft. You can see we don't really have too much strong flow between layers of the atmosphere. So overall, the shear magnitude is not going to be very strong. But we do have a slight difference in the steering between the surface and the upper levels of the atmosphere. You can see towards the surface, we have more of a southwesterly steering component, and in the upper levels, we have more northwesterly component here. And this is going to result in a slight moderate shear. You can see that this is more light shear. This is about 10 knots of shear. It may jump up to moderate values at times. And while this shear is very low in magnitude and it may not have a significant impact itself on the system, especially if it can get a well-structured eye in place today, something we will have to watch for is if this shear can force in some drier air that may come out of Madagascar. You can see on this model, this is a HAFS model, a cyclone specialized model, showing the moisture field in the mid layers of the atmosphere. You can see surrounding the storm immediately, we have very deep green, showing you deep moisture that you would expect around a tropical cyclone like this. But we have high terrain here over Madagascar, and what often happens with storms in the Mozambique Channel is that their southern sides will pull winds off the western edge of these mountains, and as the wind rushes down the mountain sides, it tends to dry out. So you can see we have less green here, more whites showing up south of the storm, and even an attempt at this wrapping in onto the western side of the storm in the model. What they're showing you is we have a little bit of drier air trying to punch into the core of our storm, and perhaps that moderate shear is just enough. Maybe it could put more pressure on the storm and maybe get a more effective push of dry air into the system center. This is not guaranteed at all, but it is something to pay attention to, and it could disrupt the system for a few hours, and that few hours could be the difference between what could be just getting to cyclone intensity by the time the system makes landfall and something much stronger. You can see the GFS model, this one does not see that dry air intrusion despite the sheer forecasts. And this is a much deeper storm. This is probably an intense tropical cyclone on this forecast as it's making landfall here. Now, between these two, I side more with the HAFS model. It is a more cyclone specialized model and it has higher resolution, so it will likely be able to catch aspects like this. And this is a common issue that storms do struggle with in the Mozambique Channel. However, we must realize that this is a possibility. What the GFS is showing, that we see something that is more rapid in strengthening, that could be stronger by the time it comes into Mozambique. And this is why I mentioned a significant threat to Mozambique. We could see the system get fairly strong prior to landfall. And for anyone in northeastern Mozambique, I'd just recommend that you listen to local officials, your local weather office, and stay tuned to the Meteo France forecasts, as they're going to be issuing those several times throughout the day up to landfall. And that will have the latest information on how you can prepare ahead of the storm. And it'll also keep you up to date on exactly how the storm is doing, how it's performing, and how it's intensifying. And of course, I'm going to have more uploads on the system throughout the course of the week as this does come towards Mozambique and moves through Mozambique, as the system will not be done once it makes landfall. You can see on this forecast from Meteo France, you can see intensifying into a cyclone on this forecast. They're siding a bit more with HAF's model on this one, which I do agree with right now, though it may need to be a little bit stronger on the forecast when it actually does come into Mozambique. But you can see Monday morning making landfall in Mozambique. And after landfall, we don't see the system quickly push west and bury itself further west. This is going to be slowing down a bit because it's going to be turning back south, and this is going to prolong potential for rainfall across much of Mozambique. This is the GFS ensemble showing you the potential rainfall that we could see here. Anything in the red here is 150 millimeters of rainfall or more, and especially along the coast where it makes landfall, we could see corridors of 300 to 400 millimeters of rainfall plus in some of these areas, and that could easily lead to some flooding issues there. But alongside this, just this vast area of heavy rainfall that we could see across Mozambique, this could be significant flooding outside of the wind impact and storm surge impacts we could see along the immediate coast. So still a significant system, even if it doesn't rapidly intensify like the GFS shows, although that rapid intensification would be a more worse scenario, certainly, if we have a stronger storm coming in here. So we'll hope for the best, but certainly be preparing for the worst here in Mozambique. Make sure you're prepared for flooding in your area. Make sure you're staying tuned to any warnings that are issued by the Weather Service. And of course, stay tuned to Meteo France forecasts, as they will continue issuing those as the system moves over Mozambique. Now, for forecast interest in Madagascar, you may be wondering, how has the forecast changed now over the past couple of days? The good news is for Madagascar, right now we're not expecting a very strong storm to come into Madagascar. You can see it's going to be spending a lot of time over Mozambique, and that's going to weaken the system, perhaps even not the tropical cyclone status anymore by the time the system comes offshore. But the environment once it comes offshore will likely be favorable for the system to redevelop. This is the GFS ensemble upper little wind plot showing you a high pressure system draped over Madagascar. Now, it's not directly over the system, but in this instance, it is still favorable because the system is tracking southeast, and we have generally southeasterly flow right over the system. So this is still a low shear environment for the system to potentially redevelop. Now, this is getting towards the long range. This is Thursday or Friday local time, and it's beyond that. So we're talking next weekend for potential direct impacts to Madagascar. But at least right now, it looks like the system is not going to be very strong by the time it comes into southwestern Madagascar, whenever that may be. And we'll keep an eye on this, certainly. This could still change. We are still over 5 days out from this, and we'll talk about the system more for its threat to Madagascar if needed. If it becomes more of a strong storm threat, we'll talk about that when the time comes. But as of right now, for southwestern Madagascar, no imminent big cyclone threat this week. The big threat here this week is in Mozambique, as the system intensifies on its way west over the next day. That's all that I've got for now. Stay safe in Mozambique as the system continues to track west. I'll leave links to the weather offices that I can find for Mozambique and the Meteo France forecast webpage, so you can get the latest cyclone forecast from this storm as it continues tracking west. and I'll have more videos like I mentioned over the course of this week as the system tracks towards landfall and moves through the region. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.